Hey friends, welcome back to the Life of a Makeup Artist podcast. Now, we are coming in hot this season because we have none other than Makeup by Mario, the Mario Dedivanovic. And I am so excited to have you here now. He has had clients like Kim Kardashian, Salma Hayek, J-Lo, just to name a few, but more notably now creating products that we know and love through his makeup brand. Now, we will be exploring his journey, his artistry, and all the magic that is Mario.
Oh, thank you for that lovely welcome. I'm so excited to be here. It's no secret that I love a good podcast, and I guess the viewers should know that I met you, or we sat next to each other at the Master Mattes Neutrals palette launch. You were on my right side, and I had Michaela on my left. And I remember I kept bopping. I remember I kept bopping left and right, talking to both of you. And you told me about this podcast, and I said to you that I want to be a guest, and here we are, like 7 months later.
Listen, I don't know if you. I mean, I'm sure you know, but people love you. I love you, and it felt like we met before for some reason.
It does feel like even now. And we did meet before, right? But it still feels. I know what you mean. It's like it's a comfortable, like I've known you my whole life type of thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So can I just ask you though? Did I butcher your name? Because I spent the entire time practicing, and I just want to make sure that I had it right.
You had it right. Yes. This last time you said it.
Because I said it. I was.
Say it again.
Let me look at my Dedivanovic.
Yes,
Dedivanovic.
That's
okay. Okay, so I will never say that wrong ever again. Okay, all right. So let's get into it. How are you, first of all? Like, how's life?
Oh, if I had to choose one word, I would say grateful is what I would say. Always grateful. Also a little tired, a little stressed.
Yeah.
But I'm happy. I'm grateful. There's so many amazing things going on, and life is beautiful. So I have no complaints.
Yeah. I love seeing you, when you're like just in your house and in nature, just relaxing.
My favorite when I'm grounding. Yeah, that's my favorite time.
So you have had a lot going on. How was your summer? Because you went on like a tour. You were in Europe. Like there was a lot going on.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy that the summer is actually like kind of officially over.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad about that, but excited for sweater weather. Summer was great. We had a busy summer at the brand, so I was working quite a bit. I took a little bit of time off, but where I just kind of stayed in my country place.
Right.
And we did have 2 tours. We had like a mini tour of Europe. So we went to Milan, we went to Paris, we went to where else did we go? Madrid, and we went to so many places.
Did you London too?
Yes, I went to London this year as well, and I have also in a couple of days another little mini tour coming up here in the States.
Right.
So I've been traveling a bit for the brand,
right.
And but it's been amazing. We launched very successfully in Europe, thank God, and so I had to go and do my little master classes and show the love to all of our consumers. And
I love that. You kind of taking it back to like where you started with your master classes, and now doing it on like a way bigger scale.
Yeah. Doing it for the brand now, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So what was it like for you growing up? Like, were you always into makeup? I know your family's from Montenegro, right?
Yes, we're Albanian from Montenegro. What was it like for me growing up? I mean, looking back now, I was incredibly quiet kid. I mean, I was probably like, I don't know even how to describe how kind of quote unquote good I was. I was a good boy.
Right.
And there was probably a lot of reasons for that, or sometimes traumatic reasons for that, right? Because I was hiding my sexuality, I was hiding who I was, who I truly was, and so everything kind of works out for a reason, and there's a purpose for everything, and I understand why everything, my upbringing was like that. But to answer your question, I was quiet, and I had an insatiable curiosity about everything, about life. I listened to everyone, I looked at everyone, I watched everything.
Right.
But I didn't speak too much.
Right.
So that was pretty much my childhood. I spent my childhood dreaming a lot and fantasizing a lot.
Were you into art and stuff before?
I was, but I suppressed it because I didn't have a means of I was afraid to say that I wanted to paint or draw, and because I thought they may perceive that as too feminine or girly, and so I remember though I used to try to any second I could, but we didn't even have money to buy construction paper and paint and things like that. We just didn't buy those things. That was extra, that wasn't a necessity, and so that just wasn't in my home. So I didn't get to really experiment too much. like that, but I remember I had a neighbor. She lived in the building. We lived in the basement apartment because my father was the superintendent of the building in the Bronx, and we had a neighbor, Miriam. She was probably at that time in her 70s. She's now I think almost 90. No, so that means she would have been in her probably 60s during that time. She was a painter, and I don't know how it happened, but I remember she gave me my first canvas, and I flipped out because I'm like, this is beyond a piece of paper. This is like a real deal.
Right.
And she talked to me and she gave me some paints and brushes. And I remember I painted a horse.
Really?
That was my first, it was pretty good too. And I just remembered that feeling that I received from doing that and being in control of that. I mean, it was life-changing for me, especially in my circumstances, you know?
Right. Wow. And it's so crazy. People do such like small, kind little deeds and they just don't know how impactful it is.
I'm going to go visit her soon. And she's very old now, but she still lives in the same place. And she writes letters to my parents still.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's so
this is
sweet.
40 years later.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, she mentioned that in one of the letters too, she remembers that she gave me the canvas.
Wow.
And like, you're right. Like, she had no idea at that time what would become of me, or like what that meant, what she was doing for me. That could have possibly unleashed my, love, my true love of artistry, of art,
Definitely changed the trajectory of your life. So, you kind of got to experiment with the painting and, just kind of delving into your own creativity. And, you spent so much time kind of like suppressing it, but then you started working in Sephora in 2000. So like, when did Mario start transforming?
So I had been around makeup my childhood because my mom used to work in corporate. She used to clean the offices of corporate cosmetics at L'Oreal, and so I grew up with her. She used to bring home gratis that some of the corporate executives that they would, they loved her and they would give her gratis. And, L'Oreal has a lot of brands.
Right.
So I grew up seeing that makeup, but I was never allowed to touch it, but I was always fascinated by it, low key. So I actually did that. I remember, when I was a kid, I remember I swatched the shadow in the bathroom one day, and I feel like I remember washing it off because I was so scared that my mom would see the blue inside the fingers, like inside the lines. But there was something powerful there for me to go into that cabinet specifically to grab that eyeshadow. It gives me chills now when I think about it. But I went to look for a job after high school. And my mom was with me, and I went into retail stores like Armani and all the stores that were popular then. And I walked by Sephora Rockefeller Center, and this was I think flagship at that time. This was 2000, and it was big, and it was 3 floors, and it was fancy.
Wow!
And when I walked into the revolving doors, I never forget. I was like, Mom, this is where I want to work. And, she literally pulled me out. And because she saw, I think, a guy came in there, wearing makeup and stuff. And she was like, oh, no.
Right.
And I applied and I never got the job. I never heard back, but I kept calling. And I got the number to someone in Paris, because Sephora is the headquarters in Paris. And I got in touch with a woman named Marie Christine. She still works for Sephora. She actually just celebrated her 40-year anniversary with the Sephora company.
Wow.
And I spoke with her, and she was opening a new store on Flatiron, 19th and 5th. And so she said, come in, you're going to meet with me, have an interview. I don't know what it was, like maybe 2 weeks from that time.
Right.
So I did. I went in, and, the only experience I'd been working since I was 12. So I had, what was that, 7 years of experience, 6 years of experience, but not in beauty, obviously. I was doing odd jobs and small jobs. And they hired me to be, officially my title was a fragrance consultant, but they really kind of just put me at the front door with baskets to hand to people. Welcome to Sephora, welcome to Sephora. And that was how the official start of my beauty journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started to work at Sephora. I'm sure, you're playing with makeup all day now, because now it's free for all. Like, you could do whatever you want.
I was a kid in a candy store.
Okay, so how was it then? Like, the just retail stores back then? Because I feel like, even because I worked at Mac, and it was a different time too, but I'm sure it was very different.
So this is like, we're coming right out of the 90s. It is, the summer of 2000. Sephora was actually very different back then. It had it was a new concept. And so there was a sort of prestige. I remember that we all had to wear a velvet glove on one hand. Was it white? A white one, I believe. White or black? I don't remember now. But, all of the floors were red carpet. We used to wear these beautiful costumes, they used to call them.
Right.
And I believe, I forgot who designed them. Was it
I think
YSL?
Paris still has those red carpets. Paris
Yeah, they
stores.
do actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a very chic, beautiful vibe, and it still is, right? But
Right.
it was different then because there was not that many brands.
Right.
The stores were more spaced out.
Right.
It was more, I think as an employee there, like we got to play a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what it was. I was fascinated always from day one by the makeup artist
Right.
because, I was looking at everyone at the store and I started to make friends with all these
Right.
new people because I still had my friends from high school, all my sort of straight friends
Right.
that were, that didn't know about me,
Right.
that didn't know about my sexuality. And so
Right.
I was in this new world of like, oh my God, I was away
Right.
from the Bronx.
Right.
I was like,
You with the girls.
yes, and I was like an hour away by train, and
Right.
like my parents were not near, and so I'm now amongst all these cool makeup artists.
Right.
They were just all cool to me, and
Right.
so we became friends. And I idolized some of them. They
Right.
were a lot older than me too, and so I naturally just gravitated towards the makeup any chance I could get. I was
Right.
fascinated by it in every way, shape, and form.
Right. So you're working at Sephora. How did you start like assisting Kabuki? Because this is what we talked about
Yes.
over dinner, which we were so shocked. I spent a couple years, for those of you who listen to the podcast, being Kabuki's first. And I
Yes.
was so shocked that you also assist Kabuki. And
Yes.
I'm like, incredible experience. But I want to know how it happened
That
for
was
you.
a few years actually after Sephora. So
Uh-huh.
okay, how that happened, that was a big one for me. I had assisted other artists before
Mhm.
Kabuki, but I was going to I was doing the whole rounds of going to the
Mhm.
agencies and dropping off my portfolio. And there was
Mhm.
this whole process back then, I'm talking early 2000s. So even back then, to be an assistant, you had to have tear sheets and you had to have like editorials, and it was
Really?
a struggle, yeah.
Wow.
Because the agencies wouldn't even look at you if you didn't.
Right.
So I would go constantly every week, go to the agencies, drop my book off. They
Mhm.
had this whole process, like you drop it off and then your heart breaks because there's 100 books on the pile. So you're like, they're never going to look at my book.
Right.
And then you'd go back, pick it up the next week. And
Right.
I just did that constantly. And then Kabuki, though, I didn't go through it. I emailed Chuck, his agent,
Right.
was it like his husband, I guess,
Yeah.
his agent,
Mhm.
yeah, his manager, and I never heard back from them. I emailed Kabuki. I emailed at that time quite a few people. Billy B, which I actually worked with him then
Oh,
after
yeah.
for a
Mhm.
few times. He was another idol of mine. And then one day I was with my friend Raphael in Queens in Astoria because I used to live in Astoria, and I don't know how I got the message, but I just remember screaming. Like I was like, we were probably at a store like Target or something.
Same.
It wasn't Target, but it was one of those stores. And because it said that, are you available tomorrow morning to assist Kabuki for Italian Vogue cover? And I was just like, what? Like I had no time to prepare. Like, what do I
Right.
do? What do I say? What do I wear?
Right.
And I was just so excited, and it was incredible. I went, I did the job, and that was when I first started to get a taste of sort of and that honing in on that training and those
Mhm.
experiences of being on major fashion campaigns with
Right.
like the biggest of the biggest in
Right.
the industry of in terms of photographers, stylists, hair, makeup.
Right.
And so having that experience was was a game changer for me because
Right.
it elevated my artistry, it elevated my taste level, right?
Right.
And being just around that type of talent and these type of people. But what it also did for me, which I'm so grateful for, is it made me realize at that age that that was not the career I wanted to go for.
Oh, I was actually just about to ask you that
Yes.
because the fashion world is completely different. And a lot of
Completely
people want to do the editorials and like, that's fine. But I would love to hear why you decided to not go that route.
I'm a very intuitive person.
Mhm.
And, like I said, I spend a lot of time like watching and reading and
Mhm.
learning. And I knew that I wanted to reach a level of success in the industry. And I knew intuitively, especially after working in fashion with Kabuki, that the people that were hugely successful during that time was a very small group of people.
Yep.
And it's hard to break through that group.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of and a lot of even today, some of those people are still the same.
Yeah.
So it's hard to break in. I think it's a little easier today with social media, but um it made me realize that, you know what, after being on set for like 15 hours and like, it just wasn't,
Wrapping at
I
3
knew
and
that,
4.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I knew that I wouldn't have the chance in that world to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I was
Mhm.
also, this Albanian kid from the Bronx,
Right.
thrust now into these fashion sets. And so I felt uncomfortable. I felt like, I just never really spoke. I stayed quiet. I just like worked, and I was a really good assistant actually. And but yeah, it helped me to realize. And so while I was assisting Kabuki and stuff, I was also doing other jobs on the side on my own. I remember I was building a website, and I would actually, I'd actually ask him about all these things too. I would show these things to him, and like, it was a big deal for me because I was like, what is he going to say? Is he going to think it's bad? Like, and he was always very loving, very kind. He was also very quiet always, but he's a master, the stuff that I saw him, that I was able to do with him, and this is so not my style of makeup, like the pasting things all over the face and cutting intricate like lace, and these is all the things that I don't really like to do. I complain about putting individual lashes on, so you can imagine what level of like, but there's so many things I learned that I still
absolutely
are still part of my artistry to this day.
The precision is insane.
Also the products, pigments. I was introduced to this whole other world of makeup and products, right? These were like hardcore pigments and paints. And
that's how I got introduced to Mac Pro, MAQ Pro.
Mac Pro.
Those Mac Pro palettes. The Krylon little round ones.
So spray paint, like airbrushing and all that stuff that he used to do. And so that was just an incredible experience for me. I still to this day, like there are certain things that I do, like even though my style is so completely different, there are so many elements that I learned from that man, from Kabuki. So I'm really grateful for that. And also from other artists as well.
I love that. Okay, so we talked about the technical skill of makeup, and you decided to take another route, but what do you consider to be one of the most important skills when doing VIP clients? Because it's a different world.
It's a different world, yes.
Now you're one-on-one with people.
Yeah, so I always say, and it depends a little bit for everyone, it's not exactly definitive, right, for every single person, but I think I excelled in that world because of all these. It goes beyond talent, transcends talent.
Yes.
It's about your demeanor. It's about your work ethic. It is about, trust, loyalty, respect, and all of these things. Like, these are the things that I worked really hard to make sure that I was always, my very best, and that, respect is a big one. Loyalty is a big one. And, you go into these people's homes and they put trust in you. And so I never took that lightly. I never allowed myself to become too comfortable. Because a lot of times they ask you to go out and go places and or stay at my place. Or, it's like I always kept it professional. Despite how many years I worked with somebody, I always.
So you're like, you're not on the yacht.
No, I never went to the parties. That's not my thing. That's not my life. Like
I just want to come and work, go home.
I just want to get my job done and go home. And I was busy. I was working a lot. So I just didn't have the energy for all that. But I think all of those other things, the ethic, the loyalty, the trust, those are the things that strengthen the talent and really make it come together. And I think, I always compare it to like, I can't compare myself to a celebrity, right? But if you think about like everyone has their favorite hairstylist or barber, right? And sometimes it's hard to go out of, your favorite barber, right? In my case, for example, because he knows the shape of my head. He knows but there's other things that I love about my barber too, is that he sees when I don't want to talk. He lets me work. But then there's other people that they see you working, but then they keep talking to you. And it becomes and then
you feel like you're being rude and you're like, no, I actually have a deadline.
This pertains to makeup artists as well, is that you have to know when to stay quiet. You have to know sometimes they want to talk. And give it to them. Sometimes they do not want to talk because they're under pressures. They're doing their own thing. They can't be bothered.
Out,
You have to understand that you can't take things personally. And you have to treat it as a job, a professional job, because sometimes I think the younger artists too, is that, everything looks so glamorous and everything it appears to be so fun and so glamorous. And there are elements of that for sure, but it is a job. It is really a job, and it's not an easy one.
And you have to show up just like you would professionally at an office, even though it's a creative space. You still have to think on that level. You're a professional.
But also, like, despite what we are going through, because we have bad days too. We have families, we have things that are going on in our lives that is like, it doesn't exist in that world. Like for me, at least, like no one ever knew if I was having a bad day or what I was going through, because it's not about me. It's about them. That you are being paid to provide a service to them and to make them feel beautiful, confident, and all these, these are big things,
I agree. So we saw Makeup by Mario come to fruition, manifested in 2000. But when did it, when was its inception in your mind? Like, how long
Yeah.
did it take for us to actually see it?
I always say that I planted the seeds in 2000, and in my little brain back then, because I was also as excited as I was to be in this new world of makeup away from my family and stuff. I still lived with them.
Right.
I was stressing about how, because I knew my parents expected of me to live the American dream, because they came to this country and sacrificed everything for us to
Right.
have the opportunity. And so I'm like, great, I'm probably not going to go to college now because I want to do makeup. I
Right.
can't tell them that I want to do makeup.
Right.
But I noticed that their brands there were, a lot of them were makeup artist brands.
Right.
And so I just put two and two together, and I'm
Right.
like, my mom works for these people. She idolizes them
Right.
because that's the only idea or vision for her that she's been exposed to of the American dream, the
Right.
people that she cleaned for.
Right.
And so I said, I can become one of those people, and then she will
Wow.
respect it and she will honor it. And of course, she respected and accepted way before
Right.
that,
Right.
before the brand. But that was when I planted the seed.
Right.
Because to me, I wanted to achieve a very high level of success
Right.
that my family had never seen before.
Right.
And I thought that would be the way to do it if I
Right.
work really hard. Because the one thing I noticed back then was that all of these artistry brands, at that time, they were in their 40s. So I
Right.
put two and two together. I'm like, okay,
You have time. You're like, I have
I
time.
have to work 20
Yeah.
years though. I have
Right.
to pay my dues.
Right.
Because I can't do this unless I'm at least have 20 years of experience.
Right.
So I kind of strategically planned my career out like that. As
Right.
I started approaching that 20-year mark,
Right.
in 2017 was 17 years. That's when I started to trademark things. That's when I
Right.
started to meet with labs, to
Right.
meet with people and get advice. And putting all those kind of pieces together. And then the more time, the closer we got to 2020, the pressure was on. And then
Right.
I had to find my executive person to hire to help me start hiring the team.
Right.
So it was a long journey.
Right.
But I'm, proud to say that I launched at Sephora exactly 20 years after I started working there.
Oh my gosh. I love this for you. You have no idea.
Thank you.
Because it's just like, you have days where you feel like it's not going to happen. I'm sure you've had those days. Like, what did you tell yourself during that time? Because, you're seeing more brands pop up. You're seeing, the industry change. Was there any kind of I don't know, an affirmation or something that you always told yourself to remember to keep going? Because the beauty industry is a very hard industry.
It's very hard, and you have to be tough skinned. You can't be you can't have a fragile, you can't be a fragile person in this industry.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened throughout the trajectory of my career. The masterclass happened, right? And that was a big one for me because that became a very lucrative business, and that essentially started a whole trend in the industry. But I remember 2015 or 16, social media happened, right? That's a whole nother monster. And I was sort of the perfect storm, the perfect timing is when everything sort of happened, is when social media started happening.
Right.
Now I had the choice to, put my head down and hide and be like, I'm not doing all this, or to grab these opportunities as they came. And I had moments where my agents had to convince me to take a brand deal or something, because the numbers were big, and they had never seen this type of stuff coming through because there's this new social media.
Right.
And I fought against it. Like, I don't want to be, because they're going to call me the contour king. They're going to do this. And I was trying to maintain, my integrity, I guess, as a makeup artist. I didn't want to be considered an influencer. I didn't want to be considered the contour king. I just wanted to be a makeup artist.
Right.
What I did, I think I did brand collabs. I remember in 2000, the first one was Anastasia Beverly Hills.
Wow.
And that one, when that one sold the way that it sold, and it was a wake up to me that I didn't know that I could actually do that. I didn't know that my name could actually sell that many things, inspire that many people.
Right.
And then I did 2 other collabs after that. And so those experiences made me more confident because I was insecure.
Right.
Because you think, number one, I'm going to invest everything I have and that I've earned my whole life.
Right.
What if it doesn't work?
Right.
Sorry. What if it doesn't work? Because that's always a chance, So it is scary, but you just got to keep going. And if it doesn't scare you, probably nothing to even you said to me before, I'm nervous to do this podcast. I'm just what are you nervous about? You're natural. But you need to be scared sometimes. You need things to scare you to get out of your comfort zone. But I also knew in my heart that I had put in the 20 years of work and that I deserved it.
Yeah.
I knew that I deserved to have a brand because I had a name in the industry and I had built a trusted name and reputation over the past 20 years, and I didn't do one negative thing to anybody.
Yeah.
So I knew in my heart of hearts that I deserved it and that the universe will repay me for all of the work I did.
And it's bigger than you. You know, you're doing it for your mom. Yeah. And, you know, and you
That's
see her.
thing.
Yeah, seeing her and how hard she worked. You know, like I mean, I'm from Trinidad. My mom, I grew up in Trinidad, and it's just like, you just want your parents to be proud of you.
Yeah, because you watch them sacrifice so much. Yeah. And for me, being the youngest son, I had this additional pressure. I'm young and gay, right? So I knew I wasn't going to be able to give her a wife and children that she wanted. And because in my culture, the youngest son is expected to live with them forever and get married and you know, literally live in the same home. And that's how our culture is. And I knew from a young age, oh my God, like what am I going to do? They're going to be so disappointed in me. So that actually, you know, and the traumas that comes with for a child, that actually helped to propel and give me this fire to keep going. But when I tell you, keep going, I went. I mean, I didn't take vacations. I didn't have a life. I didn't have any partners ever. I sacrificed my life for my job and for my career. And so, yeah.
Well, I hope you get more time for
now. Yes. Now I know the importance of you know, balance. For me, balance and grounding, and you know, it's all about that. You know, I spent my life seeking balance on someone's face, on people's faces, and harmony and all this stuff, but like never on my own life. And so now I do it for the brand, and I do it when I am doing clients for my clients, but most importantly, I also do it for myself.
Yeah, you deserve that.
Thank you.
So what I love most about the beauty industry is that, you know, you could just be you. Like, you know, as you said, you know, when you were in Sephora, you're seeing everybody, you know, who has makeup on, who has a different style, and they were so inspiring to you, right? You could like soft glam, or you could be like Kabuki and be creative. And it's okay. And I know this was a very monumental moment for you. You chose to come out when you received the Artistic Achievement Award at the American Influencer Awards. I want to know, like, why did you choose that particular moment? Because you're such a quiet person, introverted a little bit, like that was a public stage.
Yeah.
What propelled you to make that decision in that moment?
That was a fully just intuitive, like from my gut. When I sat down, I was in the city, and I remember the award show was in LA, and I sat down on my bed to start writing my this acceptance speech, and it was a big deal for me because you know, just the title of it too was just like, oh my God, like I had dreamt about this. There was a lot of things going on during that time in my life. I remember I had the New Yorker was doing this feature on me, and they were following me around for a year, but I was so paranoid that because what if they ask me about my sexuality? What am I going to say? Like, I'll be mortified if my parents, you know. Also, I was starting the brand already, and so there was this, something was bothering me. Something was like, how can I do this feature and have these people follow me, and how can I accept this award, and how can I start this brand when I'm lying to myself? Everybody obviously knew or assumed, right? But I wasn't allowed to ever say it. And I was dodging that question my whole life. I didn't go on YouTube ever because of that reason. And so YouTube was another reason, because I had decided before that award show I was going to start a YouTube channel. I was actually doing a deal with YouTube, and I hired the guy to start, you know, to film, and we bought all the equipment and everything. And he asked me the question. He's like, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, but I was like, we can't talk about that. He was like, on YouTube, he's like, you know, like how it is on YouTube. He's like, you can't just not talk about that part of your life. Like people are gonna comment and stuff. And I remember saying to him, literally, like, I was like, and I meant it. I was like, I would rather die right in this moment than to come out ever on YouTube, because of what that would do to my parents, to my culture. I was so scared, living off of fear, you know. And the topic of that award show, I think it was something about courage, right? That was the whole theme of it. And I sat down, I started writing, and it all came from my stomach. I couldn't believe, I'm like, what am I writing right now? Where is this coming from? Like, and I just kept typing, and I sent it to my PR at the time. And I said, don't ask me why I said I'm doing this. And and then I told my sister, and she's like, okay. She's like, do it. And I had spoken to my mom about it. She didn't know I was going to come out on stage, but I broke down to her in person shortly before that speech, because I was going through it. It's like you have all of these things happening to you, positive things, incredible things that you waited for your whole life, that you worked for your whole life, you earned it, yet this little thing that is, I couldn't be myself. I couldn't say or be comfortable, or I couldn't go on YouTube. It was preventing me from growing. And I was in a place of growth. I was 37 years old. Life is about growth, about change, and that was one of the things that I had never grown out of, that I had never changed, never healed. And, I did think that was going to heal it. I thought that would be like the end of everything, and that life would be just, that was just the one little step, because after that, then the real healing comes, and like you have to deal with the effects that had on you your entire life. But yeah, so thank God though it happened. The one thing I didn't think about, because I didn't have time, was what would the effects of that be for others around the world? And
I was about to say, because that you did that for you, but you didn't know what you did for other people.
Oh my God, I had no idea what that did for people all over the world. I'm saying way beyond Albanians, because actually a lot of Albanian boys came out after that. But Arabs, Indonesians, this exists everywhere in the world. Like it's not just culture, and I was born and raised in New York, but it existed so heavily and strongly in my life in the middle of New York City. So you could imagine these people all around the world, the amount of love and support that I got, and the amount of, you changed my life, you changed my life, you changed my life. Thank you. That still comes to this day. I still get them in my DMs, emails, everything, because people see it on YouTube and they come across it and stuff. But yeah, that was a big thing for me, that freedom. I felt like a building came off of my head, because at least I knew that when I step into a room, or when I go to my country, or when at least I had that pressure that I knew no one was going to ask me, are you going to get married, or what are you doing, or it's like,
or they like, where are the kids, and it's just like,
and so, and because my thing is like, I don't lie, I don't want to lie, like I'm an honest person, but I felt like I had to lie, just for the mere fact that I couldn't say anything about it, and so I had the option of just being quiet, but what I wasn't going to do is pretend that I had a girlfriend, or a wife, and this, because that's what people do, so yeah, that's why it happened that day. And I think, it happened for a reason. And that was the very beginning of my healing journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've inspired a lot of people with your courage. And now you've been inspiring a lot of people with your products. Tell us, I mean, I know this is such a hard question and maybe it's not fair, but tell us one of your favorite Makeup by Mario products.
Oh my God. So this really is hard. It's hard because you're so attached to, like, you put a lot of love and passion into these products. So it's very hard to choose, but let me not treat it so serious. We'll talk about it lightly. So it's not too serious, but I want to say one of the products that is the most near and dear to me always is the Master Mattes palette original. It's just the process of like when I started creating it, how I started creating it, what it meant for me, and what it meant for sort of the brand, and for that to be one of the the original product of the brand. What is the meaning behind that product? And I did so much research. There was so much care and love and thought. And you, as a melanated woman, I'm sure you can appreciate it, because there's colors in there that we do not see.
Even the cool palettes. I use that. Luckily I have one for me and one for my kid. But I was just like, I needed both ways, because sometimes I'm like, you want to use a warm color in your crease, but but like now I'm like, oh, I actually have some good cool colors that don't look like ash.
But that palette is inspired by human skin tones and the evolution of human skin tones. So like a lot of my other products, this is not maybe so much of a known thing, but there are underlying messages and like lessons and education behind all these products. And so Master Mattes, is sort of the story of the evolution of human skin tone, and that how we all started out very, very dark. Over thousands of years, we migrated north and became light because of Mother Nature. People don't know that. People don't realize that. And so there's little messages, beautiful messages there. And what that message is that we are all equally beautiful. We are literally the same. And so that for that reason, that product, it was a painstaking process, because in these days, I was in the labs myself with the chemists and stuff. I didn't have a team. It was just me and the chemist. I had maybe one person. So I was doing a lot of the work and wanting it so badly to be so perfect and adjusting it. And I remember my benchmarks were not eyeshadows. And so that threw them off at the lab, because they were like, you're not going to give us eyeshadows? Like, how do you want us to make these benches? But they're creams and stuff. And I was like, well, that's the whole point of the, and I freaked out when, Sephora ordered a lot and then COVID happened. So there's so many reasons why this product is so special to me, because I was devastated, because I'm like, oh my God, all of this work and research and passion that I put into this product, and they ordered all these products, and then COVID. So then, of course, fear struck again, because I'm like, it's not going to sell. No one's going to buy it. No one. Thankfully, it became and has been the number one palette globally. The number one palette globally at Sephora for the past, I think, 3 years.
That's amazing.
Fun fact. In fact, I think we have number 1, 2, and 3 palettes globally.
Look at you.
I know.
From giving the basket to having number 1 palette. Do you sometimes have moments where you can just like sit in that? Because it's insane. I know your life is so fast and things are happening so fast, but
the
magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, of course I have moments. I'm always, because that, who I am, like my inner child is so a part of me, and like I don't ever forget like who I am, where I come from, and the opportunities that I've had in life. And again, I live my life with gratitude. So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing is gratitude. When I go to bed at night, the last thing is gratitude.
Do you have a journal? Do you do a journal?
I try. I buy them all the time.
They're so cute to buy.
I buy really cute ones, and then I
nice
do
pen.
it for 3 days. I feel so organized and so like on point. I'm like,
and then you're like, wait, where did that journal?
And then they just get lost, and I like, but I have a journal in my head. So.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so my actual favorite product. I mean, this is, I'm a makeup artist, but those brushes are my favorite brushes. You don't understand. Because I think a lot of people, like, some are like, I don't like dual-sided brushes. But I'm like, it's like both sides are useful. Because, sometimes you have one brush side and you're like, okay, I don't really care about that side.
Yes.
But both sides they're just amazing. Like, I love your brushes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes me feel great, because, in the retail world, like, brushes are not considered a big thing.
No, and a lot of brands just don't do them. Oh, they just do them.
Yes. But I fight for them. Because I have to convince. I'm like, no, guys, trust me. This is this is going to do well. They're like, no, brushes don't do well. And I'm like, no, trust me.
Right.
Boy, let me tell you, we have some really strong brushes that do very, very well. So it makes me very proud.
Right.
Also to know that I fought for those things, and that to see that it's reciprocated by the consumer, that they are enjoying it and loving it. And then when you get to shift that view, and then they're like, wow, Mario's brushes, like, do you want to do any more?
Right. I'm like, do we have more coming?
Yes, always. We can't do too many.
Right.
But my dream is, of course, to have like a full,
like a set,
like hundreds of them.
Yeah, I love that. Hey friends, I hope you are enjoying this episode. If you have not yet signed up for our backstage crew, go to the show notes or in the link in our bio in all of our social platforms to make sure that you're not missing our secret episodes and all of the exclusive access that you're going to get from being part of our crew. Now, I don't want to hold you up for too long, so let's get back to the episode. So there's been a lot of uproar, and rightfully so, in the industry when it comes to shade range inclusivity. How do you navigate this as a brand?
Yeah, this is difficult. It's not the easiest thing, because you want to be obviously inclusive and you want to be able to, but there's so many factors that are involved. One of the things, for example, is like the space in retail. They give you a certain amount of space, and then you have to remove things.
Right.
So perfect
Which
example,
is not really talked about, but
because people don't really know, people don't really know. That's like more of a business thing in the backside of things. But for example, like even the loose powders, that there's a shade that's only online, because I fought for that shade. It's one of the deeper shades. It was removed from the space on the shelving, but it's definitely online on both Sephora and MBM. But that's like an example that I can think of recently, that it was important to me, because it was I think it's 4 or 4.5 in the powder. It has that ochre, that golden undertone, that if you don't have it, it's going to be ashy.
Right.
So things like that I'm constantly trying to always incorporate, and trying to and there's lessons to be learned, and there's mistakes that you make as a brand founder in the early days, especially when you have no money, you have no team, and you need to get things moving. And but it's definitely something that as we grow and that we're able to really, that's my goal, is to be to be inclusive for everybody, and for everyone to have a place there.
Yeah. I think for me, I kind of hold makeup artist brands a little bit to a higher standard, but I feel like, it's like, I'm like, okay, you kind of know, but I definitely think, like, obviously, like, for me, once a brand is willing to listen, learn, and make changes, like to me, that's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's necessary, you know?
But we're also like, another good thing is like, so after, consumer feedback and everything like that, and over time, you get to sort of do shade extensions, you get to perfect existing shades. And so like sometimes a shade is, maybe there's too much yellow in it, or maybe there was too much red in it, because that's something we see a lot. I think with the deeper tones is that they can go too red sometimes.
Yeah.
They can go too gray, too red, too yellow easily. And so now we get to sort of perfect all those things over time and then release them. And so, that's a great part of it, is that, and we're in the process actually right now of doing a lot of like shade tweaks and perfecting things and like, things that came out in the past. As we sort of release these new collections. So.
Tell us about the powder. I wore it for my entire vacation. Remember I told you I went to Lake Como?
You did?
Yeah, because I did a video. I haven't posted it yet. But I wanted to test it out, like, because it was so hot. It was 90s. So I used the shade, is it Warm Sand or Warm Honey?
Warm Honey.
Warm Honey.
That's number 4. And then there's Warm Deep Honey, right?
Yeah, so I use Warm Honey most of the time, because I use it for mostly my under eyes. It wore really well. Like, I really like it. Can you tell us more about this? Because it's new. It's
it has
less than a month old. Or something. Yeah.
This was another like stressful one. This is why it's so stressful for makeup artists to come out with a product, because we're so attached to them. I'm a fan of talc. Like I've used talc.
And everybody is taking that. I mean, isn't it legal now? You have to take it out. There's a lot of products like
I know. I mean,
NARS blush change.
It's a better thing to do.
Yeah,
it's just better.
Okay, so it's not good for us.
Going.
Yeah,
but I have historically used talc, like, and that was never even a question or like a thing.
Right.
Like we didn't care about that stuff.
Right.
It's like we just use products like
right.
How to get
now you're like, I don't want to die.
Yes, and so that was a tricky one for me because I wanted it to look beautiful and perform the way that I expect a product to perform for me. And so I think we nailed it. I think we got a really modern formula. It feels like a future powder. It feels really,
it's
really
very finely
light.
milled.
Yes. And so it's doing so incredibly well. And it's bringing so much joy to people and to our consumers. And like, I'm already starting to see, because people stop me outside all the time. Right. And so sometimes it's like always ethereal eyes or masterminds, enhance or this, that. And then now I'm starting to get it's the powder.
I know. So, I'm like, I'm ready for press powder. I know I'm not rushing you.
I love. That one takes a while.
Yeah, that takes a while. Yeah. 2 years?
I don't know. I can't tell you. But I've been working on it for a long time.
Wink, wink. Don't quote him, okay? Okay, so I want to talk about skin prep.
Yes.
So when you're doing your clients, obviously everybody's skin is different, but kind of take us through like how you treat the skin, because a lot of the times, even when I'm doing, my beauty education videos, I'm like, listen, the makeup is important, but it's how you prep that skin.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes, I've always had a pretty simple approach to skin prep. I have this weird thing. So I first take a wipe. So no matter who it is or no matter what's on their face, I don't like to start like if they have their own stuff on because it's slidey and slippery.
Right. And you don't know what that is.
And I want grip. Like, so I start with brows. So I always start out cleaning their face, like almost like stripping it.
Right.
It also low key like exfoliates it a bit.
Right.
Like you take a little wipe and you just kind of clean, not an oily wipe though. Right. I use the Makeup by Mara ones. They're just like super simple. And they're not oily. Like they're not going to take off your waterproof mascara, but it's great because it has a grip. And so I start off with that. I clean the brows really clean. I clean under the eyes. I clean the skin. That also does like a layer of exfoliation. And then I go in, I do brows first without anything on the face.
Really?
Because I don't like it to slip and slide.
Same.
I'm a grip person.
But you know what? I do brows first, and sometimes people do brows last because they're like, I don't know what shade. And I'm like, no, I need this brow to be like on dry skin. Yes. No moisturizer.
On dry skin. Yeah. Some things just work better on dry skin and like brows. The lips for me too, like I hate lining a really wet lip because you can't.
Full of moisturizer.
It won't
grab.
It won't grab.
Right.
So I do a very emollient moisturizer, and I started doing that many, many years ago. I remember, I think maybe it was in Billy B that I saw doing that for the first time, where he would use a very emollient moisturizer because he likes powder, and I like powder. So the using a very emollient moisturizer as a base, despite and regardless of what someone's skin type is. Now, mind you, I wasn't doing makeup for people's day-to-day lives. Right. I was doing makeup for people so that they need to perform.
Right.
And so the very emollient moisturizer served as a base for my powders to grab onto them and grip beautifully and last longer and make it look more natural. So I've always just done makeup on everyone with emollient skin moisturizer.
Any primer?
No, sometimes I I always had a thing where I just never, I used to be scared to use a primer
Right.
because I had my method
Right.
and my method worked beautifully and my clients loved it. I was afraid to start incorporating these other layers that
Right.
might affect my powder or might affect my foundation.
Right.
I remember later on in my career, I started to use that, that Tatcha primer that was like, you just scrape it with the, it was like
and
mostly
it's
with
like
wax.
I know what you're talking about. It's like a flat
Yeah, it was like a
yeah.
like a pressed product, and you
Yeah.
scrape it.
Yeah.
I remember that
It's kind
was
of like the Nesamaric's
is it?
blurring balm. The texture of
It
it.
looks like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember that was the first one I started to experiment with, and I was like, okay, but like, I never noticed like that much of a difference.
Right.
And it's one less step for me.
Right. So you're not really thinking about primer at all when you're doing the makeup.
Well, I'm thinking about maybe developing something that but it has to fit for like my purposes that I want it to do or what I want it to do.
Right.
I'm open though. Like I'm very intrigued by all these primers I see in the market. Some of them go viral. Like I know some of them are sticky and some of them like I can understand without even touching it or seeing it how the concept works and everything. But I'm just sometimes I like simple and old school.
You're like if it's not break, I'm not gonna fix it.
Now listen, if somebody has like let's say if I was doing a film, I don't do films and all that, but like if I was doing a film, I would probably be using like especially for men who have oily skin and large pores. I know that all that stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna need. Yeah. What about setting spray?
Yeah, setting spray I've been using for years. When I started using setting sprays before, that was the thing. Again, because the powder, so my girls like powder, my clients like powder, and we need to use powder because otherwise, it might look beautiful on that lighting and camera, but the second that they go away is going to be a mess. So
and then they have all these HD cameras.
Yes. And setting sprays were always a part of my technique. I started using those things early on in my career.
Do you layer them?
No, but I used the first one I used was water. I remember seeing someone when I was younger. Oh my God, it might have been Fran Cooper actually. You know Fran Cooper? Oh, iconic makeup artist. She's not very known, but she's like from even before Kevin. She's incredible. I think I saw her on set. She was using maybe an Evian water, one of those like Evian sprays, and I just knew instantly what she was doing because she did it right after powder. I was like, oh, she's wetting the powder. So, and then that's when I started experimenting with it. And then I remember it went into like MAC Fix Plus and then Tatcha. And then I went through all these phases, but I love a setting spray because it just gives it the lived-in look. So
yeah, you can't go without a setting spray. So that leads me to my next question. Any OG products that were in your kit that are still in your kits? Because the girlies want to know.
Yeah, probably so many pigments and things. And like, all my old school palettes of like all the colored pigments and all the skin colored pigments. And
what about the setting spray?
Setting spray, I use Makeup by Mario.
I know, but like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, because I developed, I always.
So wait, is your setting spray though a blend between like a holding and a fixing and a fix plus?
Which is what I wanted. And I wanted a light one because, you go through certain phases in your career. I remember there was a phase where I was using the dewy setting spray because I wanted it to be like, but it's like, I'm just not into that right now. I'm into just more like natural finish.
Yeah.
So we designed the setting spray so that it is sort of like a blend, a mix of like the different setting sprays I've used throughout my career. But for me, it's like the perfect blend of like just enough, not too much.
Right.
So yeah, that's the setting spray. And it has a really cool nose spritzer.
I love that. So, are there any secrets you could share with us?
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer your question about the
what?
The products that in my kit. Yes.
I mean, okay. If you want to name anything.
Yeah, because I feel like they might want to know. I'm still a hardcore L'Oreal Voluminous mascara guy.
Oh, okay.
My whole life. I still love an Ardell, like Wispy Lash, and
Little Demi Wispy.
Beauty Blender. I still have like lots of like things from Alcone, like brands that people wouldn't really know
like pro
about.
makeup, yeah.
Yeah, like really pro makeup things that I have in palettes and stuff, and I don't get to use them that much anymore. But every now and then I pull it out.
Right. So, are there any secrets you can share with us?
About
I won't tell anyone. About what's to come.
Yes. Well, no, actually.
You're like, no, actually, I can't.
Because I have a reputation for leaking too many things.
No. I mean, And you don't have to say exactly. You can
it's so
just
funny too.
allude.
My reputation in the industry with my celebrity clients was like, they used to call me the Bolt because I never leaked anything. I
Right.
like never could get a word out of me, but with my own brand, I'm just
You're like,
leaking
this
left
is-
and right.
I mean,
We have 2 more
mhm.
collections. That's what I can tell you.
Okay,
I don't even know
we'll
if I'm
take
allowed
it.
to say that, but yeah, some really beautiful,
fine.
fun, like nice, like
This year?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yes,
so
very
you're building a
excited.
brand, you're doing celebrity makeup. What do you do to unwind? I know you say you like to ground a lot, but
Yes.
like, what do you do now that you're in this space where, you know what, I could get a little bit of me time?
Yeah.
What do you like to do?
I'm so boring. I'm so boring. I'm just tired all the time.
Are you watching Netflix? Are you listening to music? What are you
Sometimes I'm
doing?
more of like I'm a really like I could be very geeky, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find these topics like scientific or like, sacred geometry or like just these like topics about whether it's earth or universe or astrology or
Mm-hmm.
nature, and I sort of immerse myself into them, and and for me that's like the ultimate where I don't get disturbed and if
Right.
I'm truly like off and like
Right.
but the first thing I do is nature, right? Grounding. I
Mm-hmm.
need to ground,
Mm-hmm.
where where I can just be present with no
Mm-hmm.
phone
Right.
outside. The level and the amount of inspiration and joy,
Mm-hmm.
just for my soul.
Right.
It is so healing for my soul.
Right.
When I actually discovered that, because I didn't know that about myself,
Right.
obviously, and so that's like my first thing that I go to that I
Mm-hmm.
do is I like simple,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I like luxury too, right?
Right.
But I like simple. I don't like a lot of noise. I don't like
Do you like
too
to
many
travel by
people.
yourself, or do you do any like
I've never
solo trips?
I've traveled myself for work,
Right.
for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And so, but it's funny, I always say like I travel the world, but I didn't really see anything
Right.
because I barely left the hotel room.
Right.
I
You're in
just
and
go to
out.
work
Yeah.
and leave. And I wasn't the type that like
Mm-hmm.
tacked on 2 extra days to
Mm-hmm.
explore.
Mm-hmm.
It just was never an option for me. I was
Right.
just like, I have to work. Like,
Right.
and so now I'm trying to definitely, bring more balance into my
Mm-hmm.
life. And I have that ability now
Mm-hmm.
where, I have the brand now and it's a Monday to Friday job.
Right.
And I have the weekends now,
Right.
which I never had weekends my whole life.
Right.
I didn't know what that was to have
Right.
Saturday, Sunday off.
Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah. So when I first took a break off, from doing work with clients and stuff like that, and that was when I first had like weekends and everything. I was like, oh my
Mhm.
God. And that's when I got the place in the country because
Right.
I wanted to get out of the city.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I do that. I keep everything very simple. I
Mhm.
like, dinners and things like that. I
Yeah.
read, I paint now as well. I
Yeah.
paint like, I just got into oil painting.
Nice.
And I also get a lot of my inspiration for the brand there. Like, I have my whole methods and things where rooms dedicated
Right.
to,
Like your space,
pulling
creativity.
inspiration
Yeah.
from nature and examining things and putting things together. And it's quite healing. And also to be able to sort of, almost like reconnect with all my family and stuff
Yeah.
because I was traveling my whole life and
Yeah.
I never was able to spend a lot of time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I could bring family together and, they all live near me and
Right.
it's so
That's
fulfilling.
so
And
nice.
yeah, also trying to get out of my comfort zone, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I also, maybe I like to isolate too much,
Right.
I enjoy it a little too much.
Yeah.
So trying to get out of my comfort zone right now. And like, this week I was telling her earlier, I went out every night this week. I can tell you, it's been years since I've been out every
Right.
night. My version of out is like, it's
Like a dinner.
I didn't,
I love
yeah. I mean, I had a drink the
Yeah.
other night at this event, and then I had a dinner, with a friend, and I'm making an effort now to,
Right.
reconnect with people and also catch up with people
Right.
because we get so busy in
Right.
this career, and sometimes you just resort to texting,
Right.
and I think that human connection portion
Literally.
and like putting your phone down and
Yeah.
just not having to post about it and just
Right.
talking and catching up, and so. I'm definitely trying to do that.
Right.
I'm also newly single, so anybody who's
It's not an ad, but
so just trying to put myself out there a little bit
Yeah.
more and put a little more effort into connecting with people again
Right.
and going out
Yeah.
there.
The more you put yourself out there, like just like your brand has manifested, like you can manifest anything you want in your life.
Yes.
Literally.
We sure can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of we have an amazing community, the life of a makeup artist, and we allow people to ask questions, and quite a few questions actually ask about becoming a celebrity artist. Like obviously it's not the same, the industry is not the same as it was. What advice would you give to someone who's kind of like trying to get to that level and trying to work with celebrities and get into that world?
Yes, there. My advice is always a little bit more old school, right? Because when I started, there was no social media. Now people can just find you on social
Right.
media. You could DM a celebrity now,
Right.
Um, is to focus. My advice is to focus. If you want to get into celebrity makers, stop trying to do fashion, stop trying to do film, stop trying to do every other form, because you're going to confuse yourself.
Right.
You're going to miss out on opportunities and chances because you were not doing this, you were doing
Right.
something else over there, and so
Right.
you missed this opportunity of your life here,
Right.
right? Um, I remember when I decided that I wanted to do celebrity, I had started, I was working with a photographer in New York. This is 25 years ago. And he had like socialites in the studio, and he had, Miss Universes and these kind of,
Right.
although I don't know if you would consider that a celebrity, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
for me, it was, at least definitely at that time. And when I started doing that kind of makeup, it was fulfilling for me because of it was just personal. Like I was putting all of my energy into sort of symmetry and harmony and balance, and I can see that this woman, this person is slowly, as I'm going, is almost transforming into this confident person who's feeling herself.
Right.
Like, let's be real, she was feeling herself.
Right.
That I didn't get that off of the editorial stuff,
Right.
because a lot of times that makeup is not even
Right.
makeup that models consider
Yeah.
pretty
Right.
sometimes, and so that helped me to really hone in and focus on, okay, this is the direction I want to go.
Right.
Slightly more commercial, more celebrity. But even when you work with celebrity, you get to work in fashion because
Right.
they do fashion jobs and they do
Right.
runways and all this stuff. I remember it makes me think of this when I had decided to go back to college after 4 years of doing makeup
Oh, wow.
because I felt guilty because my mom,
Right.
expected me to have a college degree. And so
Uh-huh.
of course I wanted to make her happy.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, let me go start college now. And so I
Right.
started college, and my career started getting so busy during that time. I was getting booked, and I remember I got the opportunity to do Veronica Webb.
Uh-huh.
And, I was born in 82. Veronica was huge in the 80s and 90s. She was, the first Black woman on the cover of Vogue. Like, it was a
Right.
big deal.
Yeah.
And I had class that day or test or something like that. And so I just never forget that moment, because it was almost like the universe was like,
Right.
you want this?
You have to choose.
Take this.
Yeah.
If you want this, stay there,
Yeah.
and I did Veronica.
Right.
And I actually don't drop out of school. But I did drop out shortly after that because
Yeah. I never finished
my
either.
career started
Yeah.
picking up, and I couldn't do it all. I
Yeah.
couldn't do 8 classes, and waking up at at that time I was doing satellite media tours for extra cash in the morning, where I'd have to do hair and makeup.
Wow.
I didn't know how to do hair, but I would just do the makeup so
Finesse it a
pretty,
little bit.
and then I
Yeah.
would just move the hair in there
Right.
at a time.
Right.
But they loved it. And so I was waking up at like 2, 3 in the morning to be there by 4 a.m. And then I was going to class. Like I was getting anxiety. It was too much for a
Right.
young person.
Right.
But I ultimately made that decision because I wanted to start doing celebrity. All of a sudden, here,
Right.
the universe gave it to me.
Right.
Now it's my decision.
Right.
What am I going to do with that? And
Right.
so you got to think of those things and
Right.
think about the opportunities that come your way that may
Right.
not come again.
Right.
A lot of the things in my life and my career
Mm-hmm.
that I did not want to do, or that I was either, whether it was because I was sick or whether it was because I was tired or I was afraid,
Mm-hmm.
it was those things that were the biggest things that changed my career.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
Even, that tutorial I did with Kim in 2009
Mhm.
on YouTube, I didn't even know what YouTube was.
Right.
It was not a thing. Tutorials were not a thing.
Right.
And I remember that morning I got so sick, and she was so excited to do it, and we had a camera guy, and if you look at it now, it's like it's so grainy. Like,
Right.
it was a professional camera.
Right.
I looked like I was 5 years old. I was so scared. But that video that I almost didn't do because I woke up in the morning and I told my friend Evan at the time, I was like, Evan, I can't do this. Like he's like, Mario, you have to because you agreed. And I
Right.
was like, I don't feel good, Evan.
Right.
I think I was scared to
Right.
go on the camera. I was scared.
Right.
And that video, from the day that it got posted, absolutely changed my life.
Wow.
That video became, for many makeup artists around the world, the
Yeah.
very first exposure they ever had to a makeup artist, like
Right.
that inspired them to become a makeup artist.
Yeah.
So perfect example of doing that thing sometimes
Right.
that makes you scared
Right.
and uncomfortable
Yeah.
because it can change your life.
Yeah.
Like this podcast.
I'm just so excited and so grateful that you made time to come here because I know
Thank
how
you.
busy you are. Like, I
Of course.
really
And
appreciate you.
I told you from the beginning I wanted to. I'm very proud of you because you are I feel like a really great role model for young and up and coming makeup artists, because you are the modern version of like You are doing it all. You are an influencer. You are an actual makeup artist on set. You are also a podcast host. Like, are you
Thank
kidding
you.
me? That's goals. I'm proud of you.
Thank
Like,
you
that's
so
not easy to
much.
do.
I really appreciate that because when I first started doing content, it was very much like, oh, you're an influencer. Like, because when I first came to New York, I stopped doing content because I was like, I came here to be a makeup artist. I want to assist. I want to do, the kabukis and the pats and the whatever. And, some people just, they lose respect for you for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, you have to choose your lane and
do
I enjoy it. It's not like, like, oh, I have to do this now. Like, I know a lot of people don't necessarily might not like it because they don't want to be on camera. But I'm like, I want to be on camera. I want to talk. It's something that I enjoy.
Have something to share and, and to teach and to, So I think, but that is the future. I mean, that is the future. And I think the fact that you've sort of grasped these opportunities and gone with it and not lived, fearful of all these things. It's very much inspiring, I think. So you should be so proud of yourself.
Thank you so much. And it's not just about, I think, not just me being proud, but like people like you believing in me and saying yes. And like, it's not like a big production company. It's me, So it's just like, I really, like, you have no idea. I'm going to get emotional, but I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, your energy. Like, we love you. I said this earlier, but even the first time meeting you, sitting next to you, I was just like, felt like catching up with an old friend. And I know for sure that this episode is going to inspire so many people. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we all know where to find you on social, but be sure to, I guess, stay tuned for all the things you have to come.
Stay tuned for all the goodies. Thank you.
Bye, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Don't forget, we are on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube if you want to see the full episode and see Mario's handsome face. And I will catch you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.